This is an ABC News special report.
And good afternoon for those of you just joining us. I'm Josh Elliott. We have the latest now on the mass shooting at the Washington Navy Yard, where at least 10 people were shot and 4 have been confirmed as being killed today. 2 officers among the wounded, and that number is likely to rise. Law enforcement sources have told ABC News that a shooter is dead in the Navy Yard complex, while the Washington, D.C. police chief has just said that they are still searching for potentially 2 additional shooters. Now, President Obama had been scheduled to speak about the economy on the 5th anniversary of the Lehman Brothers collapse at the White House today, but we are now hearing that he will address this unfolding situation at the Navy Yard. And while we wait for the president, let's bring in now our ABC's Pierre Thomas with the very latest here. Again, Pierre, what do we know about the shooter, the one shooter that we know has been confirmed dead?
We're being told that this is a former Navy official. We don't know whether he's military or a civilian employee, that this person is in their 50s, and there has been recent information about his employment status. Law enforcement officials are looking very closely at his background right now. Again, they do have a name. We're not releasing the name. Intensive background check is being done. As far as those other 2 people that may be potential suspects, they were identified as a black male and a white male, possibly wearing military garb. Law enforcement officials are telling us on background that this is being checked out. It's not confirmed that these are actually people involved, but until they know for certain, as you can imagine, there's a lot of confusion in a situation like this, with witnesses giving different types of accounts that law enforcement officials want to get through before they make official statements.
Again, we do have 2 eyewitness accounts. We'll hear those after the president does speak about the shooting. Again, a shooting said to have taken place just prior to 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time in Building 197 at the Navy Yard and the Naval Sea Systems Command headquarters. Now, this is a massive complex home to some 3,000 workers, and as Pierre did mention, a very fluid situation with oftentimes this morning conflicting eyewitness accounts. Again, we are waiting to hear from President Obama. He had a previously scheduled press conference today. He was going to speak about the state of the U.S. economy. Again, though, we do now know he will be speaking about this unfolding situation. And while we do wait, if John Karl is there. John, what can you tell us about when he was briefed?
Josh, the president was briefed on this just minutes after the initial reports of the shooting and was briefed several times as more details came in. Obviously something of high priority here at the White House. I'm also told that congressional leaders were also briefed on this. All eyes on this. You know, that Navy complex is right in the heart of Washington, D.C., not far from Capitol Hill. And this is something that's got obviously repercussions that go far beyond there. And there I see some people coming into the room. We expect to hear from the president shortly. Unclear whether or not he will go on and give his previously planned economic speech. That was supposed to start some 40 minutes ago on the 5th anniversary of the collapse of Lehman Brothers. Obviously, that all kind of thrown into uncertainty by this shooting at the Navy Yard.
All right, John Karl again there at the White House. Again, President Obama, we wait for him. As John mentioned, a previously scheduled press conference. The president had been scheduled to discuss the state of the U.S. economy 5 years after the collapse of Lehman Brothers. However, he will be speaking about the shooting at the Navy Yard.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please have a seat.
Now.
Before I begin, let me say a few words about the tragedy that's unfolding not far away from here at the Washington Navy Yard. That's part of why our event today was delayed. I've been briefed by my team on the situation. We still don't know all the facts, but we do know that several people have been shot and some have been killed. So we are confronting yet another mass shooting. And today it happened on a military installation in our nation's capital. It's a shooting that targeted our military and civilian personnel. These are men and women who were going to work, doing their job, protecting all of us. They're patriots, and they know the dangers of serving abroad, but today they face the unimaginable violence that they wouldn't have expected here at home. So we offer our gratitude to the Navy and local law enforcement, federal authorities, and the doctors who've responded with skill and bravery. I've made it clear to my team that I want the investigation to be seamless so that federal and local authorities are working together. And as this investigation moves forward, we will do everything in our power to make sure whoever carried out this cowardly act is held responsible. In the meantime, we send our thoughts and prayers to all at the Navy Yard who've been touched by this tragedy. We thank them for their service. We stand with the families of those who've been harmed. They're going to need our love and support. And as we learn more about the courageous Americans who died today, their lives, their families, their patriotism, we will honor their service to the nation. They helped to make great. And obviously, we're going to be investigating thoroughly what happened, as we do so many of these shootings, sadly, that have happened, and do everything that we can to try to prevent them. Now, in recent weeks, much of our attention has been focused on the events in Syria.
Again, that was President Obama beginning a previously scheduled press conference on this, the fifth anniversary of the collapse of Lehman Brothers. He had been scheduled to simply be discussing the state of the U.S. economy. But, of course, leading that press conference with comments about today's mass shooting at the Washington Navy Yard. President Obama calling it a cowardly act targeting men and women who were just going to work. He would call those men and women patriots, and he emphasized repeatedly that this is an ongoing investigation, echoing the words we just heard of D.C. Police Chief Kathy Lanier, who did say that investigators are still exploring the possibility of as many as 2 additional shooters still at large in the U.S. Navy Yard complex, a massive complex in southeast Washington, home to 3,000 workers. Again, a shooting that occurred just before 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Shelter-in-place order was quickly put in place, and we now want to turn to ABC's Lisa Stark. She is there at the scene. Lisa, again, this is an unfolding situation, and now with the comments from the police chief that perhaps as many as 2 additional shooters are still at least being sought. What can you tell us about the scene there?
Absolutely. Because of that, this scene remains locked off. All the offices in this area remain on lockdown, including the Department of Transportation. The folks at National Stadium, they're having to make a decision about the baseball game tonight. Also, all of the people in the Navy Yard still trying to figure out if there are 2 additional shooters. The U.S. Park Police has helicopters circling the area looking for possible other suspects. The police chief, though, and the mayor did say they believe this is an isolated incident. They did say that, although, as we said, they are looking for 2 additional shooters. They did confirm there are fatalities, people who remain in the building. They would not confirm the number. 4 people have been injured. They have been taken to local hospitals. One of those is a D.C. police officer who engaged the suspect. That officer shot in the legs. He is in surgery. We are told he is in stable condition and is expected to survive. But the scene does remain very fluid. There are schools on lockdown in this area. For a time, even Reagan National Airport was shut down. No planes were departing the airport. So as you can see, they're still trying to figure out if they still have active shooters in the area. They're asking people to stay out of this part of Washington, D.C. as they continue to search what they say is a very, very large area. Josh?
Lisa Stark, thank you. Meanwhile, we do want to bring you the accounts of 2 eyewitnesses who spoke with our station there in Washington, WJLA, about those moments in which they faced the shooter down. Take a listen.
As we were, the fire alarm went off first, and I was on the phone, and somebody came on my desk and said, "Hey, this is not a fire alarm. Somebody has been shot in the building." So we went around trying to get people out of the building, and as we were exiting the back door, we noticed him down the hall. He stepped around the corner, we heard shots, and as he came around the corner, he aimed his gun at us, and he fired at least 2 or 3 shots. And we ran down the stairs to get out of the building. And after we left the building, there were still shots in the building.
He aimed a gun at you?
Well, there was a group of us, and he aimed a gun and fired our way.
So you were there too?
Yes, sir.
Looking down the barrel of a gun?
He was far enough down the hall that we couldn't see his face, but we could see him with the rifle, and he raised and aimed at us and fired, and he hit high on the wall, just as we were trying to leave.
What was going through your mind?
Get everyone out of the building right now. Get everyone out of the building because there's someone shooting.
Again, to recap the situation, just before 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, at least 1 shooter, who's now confirmed dead, entered Building 197 at the U.S. Naval Yard. It's the Naval Sea Systems Command headquarters, and opened fire. killing at least 4, we can tell you, and there are at least 10 wounded. We can also tell you that those numbers are expected to rise. Again, we will be monitoring this very fluid situation and keeping you updated as events warrant. We're going to return you now to our regular programming. And of course, there will be a complete wrap up tonight on World News with Diane Sawyer. And you can get the latest anytime at abcnews.com. I'm Josh Elliott here in New York.
This has been a special report from ABC News.